In this video, I'd like to outline a system for trainers, therapists, golf instructors, and golf fitness customers to learn how to use the 3D strap effectively and more responsibly for golf-focused goals. This video is going to have two parts. In the first part, I'm going to cover foundational exercises using the strap. And in the second part, eventually I'm going to get to what I call feel exercises. Now, a giant disclaimer on this video. The feel exercises certainly will appear to be more golf specific, but please do not skip ahead to those exercises. Spend much more of your time getting better at the foundational movements, which are ingredients of rotational movement ability, golf movement ability. When I'm working with general population clients, my recreational rotators, right, we do some funky stuff in the gym and some exercises that, a client really doesn't know what they're getting out of it. Every trainer has experienced this. So I have to compare sometimes the training process and training philosophy to making pizza. If you bring me crappy pizza, I'm not just going to throw more toppings on it or cook it longer. I'm not going to add more of the same or do more of the same that brought me crappy pizza. I have to break down that pizza into ingredients. So you're going to have dough exercises, you're going to have sauce exercises, you're going to have cheese exercises, individually, none of which look like pizza. But what we're trying to do is enhance an ingredient. So it's my job, hopefully, to show you that these foundational exercises are working on the ingredients. Hopefully I can do that for you. With that all being said, let's get to the exercises. The first exercise I'd like to demonstrate using the 3D strap is a half kneeling trunk rotation. Half kneeling meaning I'm going to get down on one knee. If kneeling is uncomfortable for you, you can also do this seated, facing the same direction that I will be. I'm going to start by putting my right arm in, spinning into the strap, and getting down on one knee, facing the cable machine. First thing I want you to do is kind of get acclimated to the pull of the resistance against your rib cage. You're going to merge the fabric up under the armpit on the rib cage and allow that strap and the resistance to kind of just win. Pull the chest forward, kind of push the chest back without really moving the head. Just kind of move through the middle. It's not going to be a big range of motion, especially if you're new to this, but you have to feel awareness or control of where your chest and rib cage kind of is in space, especially building awareness in this posterior rib cage, which we'll need for exercises later on in the video. Now, once you've kind of gone through this kind of cat-camel, strap-camel kind of exercise where you're allowing the strap to win and then you're pushing back against the strap, I don't know how much this lands on video because I'm kind of far away from the camera, push that rib cage back. Now you begin to add that push to the rotation. So how we rotate through the upper body, I think, matters. And we want to find that rib cage and draw the rib cage back. So we're actually rotating through the chest. I want to imagine having a headlight on my sternum, and that sternum shines to the left and then to the right. Giant headlight turning around the corner. Compared to just pinching your shoulder blade back and creating the appearance of rotation, right, by pinching your shoulder blade back. Collectively, as a team, the collarbone and the shoulder blade are mobile. They move on the rib cage, so my chest doesn't have to move, and I can open up this way. We want to rotate, get that rotation through the upper body, through the chest, through the rib cage to create a good turn, while at the same time keeping the lower body still. So you found the rib cage, you're rotating, you're drawing it back. Equally, you need to try as hard to keep the lower body still. You have headlights on your lower body, kneecap zipper, you point them straight ahead as you turn the giant headlight of your upper body to the left. A couple things there. Find the rib cage, draw the rib cage back, keep the lower body still, right? Create that separation. Those will be, that ability, that rhythm is what we're going to need later on in the video. In terms of sets, reps, and weight, let's start with weight. Most of these exercises, if not all, should start light, and you need to build up individually to reach kind of a sweet spot of resistance. That is enough tension to teach. What I mean by that is that you're using enough resistance to give you the feedback through the body, where the strap is pulling against the rib cage or the pelvis, depending on what we're doing, to get the feedback to move the segments of the body in the way that I'm coaching. None of these are like max strength exercises. I will tell you when a setup kind of permits you, adding some load and getting stronger. But for an exercise like this, where we need to keep the neck relaxed, if we're using too much resistance, we start to grimace and start to develop tension in our neck. We're not getting out of it the coordination that we want to take away from it. So 6 to 10 reps, slow to smooth tempo, with good amount of focus on those technical cues. Finding the rib cage, stabilizing the lower body, drawing the rib cage back. Keep the neck relaxed. All right, on to the next exercise. The first exercise using the strap, the half kneeling trunk rotation, was designed to improve or increase kind of awareness of the rib cage in space, and then improve dissociation from the top down, rotation of the upper body on top of a stable lower body. In this exercise, we're going to work on dissociation from the bottom up, moving the lower half kind of independently of the upper half. It's a really cool category of exercises that we can create using the strap that it's hard to do elsewhere. I'm going to start to put my leg into the strap, get the strap high around the thigh, get some tension into the strap, and then spin, okay, to the left in this setup and create a hip girdle. So the strap is kind of around my glute here. Now the setup, I'm not going to start by facing you. All right, I'm actually going to turn slightly towards the resistance. So the resistance is pulling me this way. It's obviously trying to rotate me. It's actually trying to pull me more onto my feet. And you can see as it pulls me onto my feet, my lower back is extending. My pelvis is kind of tilting forward. Your exercise address position here needs to start by kind of getting the pelvis leveled out, using the abs here to level the pelvis. Also, where your weight is in your feet, right? If you're on your toes, chest will come forward, pelvis will tilt. Right? And then correspondingly, if you draw this chest back and you level the pelvis, you'll shift back to the middle of your feet or toward your heels. So all of it's related. Rib cage, pelvic position, and pressure in your feet, all related. Long story short, get the chest back, level the pelvis, stay there, that's your exercise address position, then press down into the stick, allow the strap to win 10 to 20 degrees, draw it back to your starting position. You don't need to max out here. All right, people start to max out, they start to dump forward into a bunch of extension and rotation. You want to level the pelvis, let it win, draw it back. Let it win, draw it back. Feel that pull against the back pocket. Again, I don't recommend maxing out. That's pelvic rotation, lower or bottom up dissociation. You would do both sides. Once again, in terms of loading parameters, reps, sets, weight, same rules apply. Okay, you're 6 to 10 reps, slow to smooth tempo, using light to moderate weight, working your way up to that sweet spot of amount of resistance that is enough tension to teach, to get the right feedback, right, without having to really brace elsewhere in your body with too much tension to create the dissociation. Enough tension to teach. On to the next exercise. For the next exercise, we're going to need rib cage awareness in space, pelvic kind of awareness in space and control of tilt, and teamwork between the two as we challenge that teamwork in a foundational fitness pattern, the hip hinge. The hip hinge using the strap is going to look like this. I'm going to put my right arm in, going to walk it out, going to spin so much that I'm facing away from the cable machine. Going to often use a cable bar or a PVC to help stabilize this exercise to encourage a reach, a counter as I hinge backwards. This is what it will look like. The fabric is merged over my hip. We want the resistance in that pocket, not across the belly. I'm going to allow the resistance to pull my hips back to get deep hip flexion. Then I'm going to come up, pushing into the fabric. I only stand up because I'm finding my glutes, tilting the pelvis, and extending my hips and pushing in to the pull of the resistance against my front pocket. Let the strap win, pull it back, get a deep hip flexion, come up, find your glutes, push into the strap, keep your chest back, as opposed to hinging and then reaching the chest forward. We want to delay the chest extension. We don't want kind of that thrust or extension through the back in this pattern. We get a deep hip crease here, push into the fabric, come up, find the glutes, get stacked, maintain that alignment of the rib cage over the pelvis throughout the pattern. Now, a little bit more on the hip hinge. This could be an exercise. You want to do both sides. 6 to 10 reps, slow to smooth, deliberate tempo, That's an exercise because we're in one plane of motion. There's no spin, there's no shift, there's no really shear, too much shear. You can load up, or you can make it, a glute strengthening exercise, a hip extension exercise. That's a pattern that's really foundational. It kind of goes both ways. It goes towards the driving range and it goes towards the weight room. All right. I can see the perspective from some more golf-focused individuals that pattern may appear to reinforce a common, dysfunctional swing trait called early extension. So early extension, a very gross demonstration as a righty, non-righty golfer here. Right? Early extension is going to be this hinge on the way back and kind of a thrust of everything towards the ball, which it appears that the hips are extending too early, and they probably are. You're probably getting some hip extension. Now, I don't see this exercise as reinforcing that pattern. In fact, I see the opposite. Okay? From a few different perspectives that I want to be careful and talk through. One, from a pure fitness, foundational fitness and movement development perspective. Okay? In the gym, we're not always going to do things that are redundant to the sport. We're going to load bodies in different ways, in different stances, against different speeds, or at different speeds, and against different directions. We want to develop kind of physical pendulums, or pendula, in buffer zones. So in order to maintain good posture in the golf swing, you want an athlete to be aware of the extremes. Okay? What is extension? What is flexion? Where's the middle? To maybe give them an opportunity to maintain the middle. Awareness of the extremes, more sensitivity to zones in the middle. Now, that's if early extension is even hip extension, which I don't think it is. I think early extension as a more technical fault may be related to, the shaft and the club head. But as a physical fault, may be just the tendency to shift body mass forward. Okay? Guts kind of leading towards the ball. Inability to maintain good ribcage pelvic alignment, which causes pressure to shift towards the toes. It's not really true hip extension, because if I'm in this position and I extend my hips and I tuck my pelvis, I create more space. So I'm sure every swing dysfunction that we're trying to work on is it's part skill, part club face awareness, and part physical. Hopefully you can see the perspective of being able to take your body through this excursion to understand maybe, hey, yeah, that's where the middle is. That's posterior tilt. This is not hip extension. It may be early extension, but it's actually not redundant to lower body strength patterns in the gym. Obviously, I'm a strength coach, so I want to defend strength training. I understand. If all you're doing in the gym is a lot of thrusting like this, okay, that's probably going to show up elsewhere in your sport. But this, with that focus, I don't think is encouraging any dysfunction. Okay, so the way you interpret an exercise, I think matters. On to the next category. We're getting closer to performing rotational exercises on our feet using the strap. And a common setup that we're going to be using is by having weight on this leg closer to the cable machine and rotating around it, right? With the resistance and against the resistance. But in that stance, we're not just getting spun. We're getting shifted. We're getting pulled sideways. In order to have control over the stance leg, we got to have sideways strength. We got to have that lateral stability. We got to wake up the back pocket. So in this clip, we're going to go over progressions to, again, building some strength in those hip stabilizers. I'm going to put my right arm in and walk it out. I'm going to start in an athletic stance. Bend the knees, sit in the hips. I'm going to start by just taking sideways steps out against the resistance and returning back to a wide base. If you're just introducing this exercise, have people return to a wide base. Push out, I got 2 steps of space and 2 steps back. You can progress this in a way to get them used to being more on one leg by having them return to a narrow stance. Step out, then step back to a narrow stance, step back to a narrow stance, get tall. Push out, okay, step back to a narrow stance and get tall. Next, progression that I love, push out, push back, drop step. Because this is going to be a position that we're going to work in the next clip. Okay, push out, push back, drop step. Push out, push back, drop step. You can take this category one step further and make it a little bit more athletic. We can bound. Bound means we're going to get some air time, and we're going to jump over an imaginary puddle back to 2 feet to start. Okay, 2 feet into the ground, 2 feet into the ground, and then finally, okay, back to one leg, and back to one leg. Get tall. Okay, get tall, wake up. Those hip stabilizers. Now, everyone, want to prepare you that when you're introducing this, your glutes are going to be on fire. All right? These hip stabilizers are going to fatigue pretty quickly. So you need to, exercise professionals, try this for yourself and recognize that you're probably going to have to do these exercises probably independently, and you can't really superset, and you can't stack a sideways exercise right into a rotational exercise because the glutes or the hip stabilizers are going to be maxed out. You need to give them some rest. So it is foundational to having control over one leg, but you have to take into account fatigue. So program accordingly. In this clip, we're going to cover 2 single leg strength exercises that add a bit of rotation: hip airplanes and single leg pivots. We've now worked our way up to be able to add and control rotation in an upright stance. Now, the technical kind of scaffolding foundation for both of these exercises is the same, and hopefully you recognize that the ingredients come from other exercises we've already worked on. So we've built up to this. And those ingredients are, let's cover the setup. You're going to have all of your energy more on one leg, the leg that's closer to the cable machine. You're going to need to first be aware of your position of your rib cage over your pelvis. Typically draw the rib cage back over the pelvis. You don't want to be too slouched, but you certainly don't want to be like creating a lot of tension in your back where your chest is forward. Get that rib cage back. Get your weight over the middle of your foot or your heel. From here, we need to hinge in this hip, a deep hip crease in this hip. When I say hinge, it doesn't mean round your back. When I say hinge, it doesn't mean extend through your spine and stick your chest forward. You'll know if you're doing that if your pressure is into your toes. Keep that pressure centered over the middle of your foot, fold. From here, you're going to feel the resistance pull against this rib cage, and you have to have that kind of posterior rib cage control, as we'll call it, that we worked on very early in this video. Then keep the rotation simple for the first exercise, the hip airplane. Allow the shoulders to spin, draw that rib cage back. Allow the shoulders to spin, draw that rib cage back, and then we're going to add a little bit of more leg action for the single leg pivot. Here's how we're going to get it set up for the hip airplane. I'm going to put my right arm in spin. I'm going to turn all the way towards you, but this is not going to be my setup. I'm actually going to turn slightly facing the resistance. So the resistance is not only pulling me to the side, it's also kind of pulling me forward towards my toes. Our hip airplane is going to look like this. Get stacked. Get that rib cage back into the strap. Tuck your pelvis a little bit. Get your weight onto your stance leg, heel, or the middle of your foot. You're going to fold and you're going to throw this foot into the ground like a kickstand. 1 pound of effort into this back foot, 99 pounds of effort into this lead leg. This is a position that you may have to encourage feeling length from the head through the back heel. It's not extension, but it's just length. Now, keep the head still on a midline. You're not going to bob and weave right to left. Allow the strap to win, draw that rib cage back. Allow the strap to win, draw the rib cage back. Okay, if what's going to feel like an abbreviated range of motion, and actually probably looks like more rotation than I'm trying to create. You can allow more segments to rotate together. You can add some flow to this. That's going to be our hip airplane. Now, people who are new to that exercise are going to go slower. So coaches and even general fitness customers be aware that when you're in that stance and you're doing 4, 5, 6 reps, but each rep is taking you 3 seconds or 4 seconds, that's a lot of time in that stance. Your glutes are going to be on fire. Just take that into consideration that you don't have to get 10 to 12 reps to get something out of the exercise if you're being deliberate and going slow. Now, for the single leg pivot, we're also going to load that leg that's closer to the cable machine. I'm going to put my right arm in. Again, the scaffolding is the same. Good alignment of the rib cage over the pelvis. Going to fold at the hip. Instead of keeping this leg stiff and rotating, we're going to rotate and we're going to bend. We're going to change levels. Okay? We're going to combine the push of this stance leg with some rotation. It's kind of like a rotational split squat. Okay? Okay, head stays in an elevator. It's going to go up and down, but I don't want it to bob and weave. Straight down, straight up. Shoulders spin, legs are strong. Okay. Good balance. Need a strong back pocket as well. Good alignment, rib cage over pelvis, strong back pocket, rib cage awareness. Keep the head still. The ingredients are the same in order to make it look simple. Same loading rules apply. 6 to 10 reps, 4 to 5 if you're going slower. I recommend go slow it down, focus on technique. So different than other exercises. You have plenty of opportunities to do simpler lower body strength training where you add much more weight. You have other opportunities in the gym to work on power. All right, this is a unique category. It's probably different than a lot of things you've done, so take your time. Don't focus on just getting your sweat on. All right, get something out of this that supplements the rest of your training. The final category of foundational exercises using the 3D strap are also going to be single leg strength exercises that add a bit of rotation. But the direction of the rotation that's caused by the push of the legs is going to be different. Let me clarify. In the stances up to this point, we've been on this leg that's closer to the cable machine. The resistance, I think we can agree, is kind of pulling us that way. When we push into the ground, we are pushing away from the stance leg. If I have a headlight on my sternum, it's shining to the left. This is my right leg. That's what I mean. In these exercises, the push from, for instance, the left leg is going to turn us to the left. If I was on my right leg, the push from the right leg is going to turn us to the right. So synergistic and different. I'm going to use an aerobic step for my setup because I want the vector downward. If you have a cable machine that goes lower than mine, you may not need the aerobic step, but I want that downward pull. Let me get into the strap. Right arm in, merged up around my rib cage. I'm going to stand on the aerobic step with my left leg. And it's a downward vector. We're going to cover 2 exercises. The first exercise is foundational. To the next. And that is going to be a split squat, in which I'm getting pulled forward and down into my lead leg. I want to encourage, even though that looks simple, I want to encourage you to find that rib cage and don't let yourself default into this extended trunk position where all your weight's on your toes. Get your rib cage back, feel centered on your foot, and push back. So superficially, engage your abs without crunching or losing height. All right, we're kind of rearranging the curves in our spine. We're not like moving our spine so much that we change the position of our head. Just a shift back. Engage the abs, shift back. Split squat down, push back. Split squat down, push back. Now we can add a little bit of flow. As I go down, I'm going to open up. I'm going to abbreviate the range of motion here. I'm going to pump a little bit. Okay, little bend, little rotation away from you, and as I push, I'm going to rotate into that stance leg. Okay, push, rotate toward that stance leg. You can increase the range of motion, increase how much you change levels. When we finish with that exercise in the foundational kind of category, because it obviously speaks to golfers, for both halves of the swing, we can call it. If I'm a righty golfer, I need to lose some flex in this trail side. I need that extension and that rotation kind of around this trail side or behind this trail side. And then if I'm going to load into this lead side, to my downswing, I want to extend and rotate. Like to say that those elements are natural. They're not. So this not only is a foundational strength exercise, because it's actually fairly simple. I hate to say that it's actually kind of fun to do once you get it. Body kind of feels like it's working together. But it also can be kind of a powerful feel for both the takeaway and later phases, extension and rotation, to and through impact in the golf swing. That wraps up the foundational component of this video. All right, now we get to the feel exercises. And instead of showing you every way to manipulate an exercise using the 3D strap for a specific phase of the golf swing, I want you the take home to be principles of stance and using the direction of the resistance to both assist and resist and create certain feels for certain phases of the swing. If you're comfortable using the 3D strap and you've covered all the foundational exercises and you have a sufficient amount of golf knowledge, all you need now is an understanding of how to utilize the direction of the pull from the strap and the resistance to both resist and assist mechanics for different phases of the golf swing to create some unique feels. Now I'm speaking to trainers directly. Do not get your clients wrapped up in the strap and have them pretend to mimic a golf swing or go through the full swing. You're not going to get something that's reflective of how the swing is produced. As a reminder, to bring this full circle, you are assessing pizza. Do not just throw more crappy toppings on the pizza. Do not just cook it longer. Break the pizza down into ingredients and enhance the ingredients whenever possible. Dough, sauce, cheese. The dough, sauce, and cheese, in terms of the phases of the golf swing for this video, okay, again, golf instructors, you have much more knowledge than I do, no doubt. Hopefully I can kind of translate at least some principles to utilize this equipment. But the phases of the swing that we're going to cover, we're going to be takeaway, okay, takeaway or backswing, transition to early downswing, late downswing, and follow through. 3, takeaway, okay, transition to early downswing, late downswing, and follow through. So what happens kind of to and through impact. Follow me. I'm going to get into a stance here. And we're going to start with a movement that is actually foundational to most of the feel exercises, and that's a pivot on 2 legs, not on 1 leg. Pivot meaning that everything's going to rotate together that contributes to rotation. And this is going to make sense as I go through this exercise, or through these progressions. To start, resistance is between knee and hip level. I'm going to turn slightly towards the resistance, and I'm going to spin. Let me talk through what's going on here. 1, head stays on a midline. You're going to draw a line down from the ceiling. You're going to keep that head still. 2, you're going to allow everything kind of to rotate. You're going to allow the strap and the resistance to win. You're going to get back to center or slightly beyond center. Now to get back, to rotate, you're going to feel as though that you're drawing your trunk back away from the strap. Imagine that the strap is hot. Okay, and you're drawing it back. That's the same cue as finding that rib cage and getting the rib cage back into the strap. So centeredness, alignment, rib cage awareness. Okay? Do that first. Tall, not tilted yet. We're getting there. Okay, so once you've practiced that simple tall pivot and really understanding what happens in the middle to keep us centered and to rotate, smoothly, I want you to take a look at this setup. If I'm in this stance, the resistance is pulling me that way. We're now going to rename pulling me, assisting me that way. As I have to turn against the resistance, it's resisting me that way. So, if I'm a righty golfer, targets that way. This is going to be a setup that might assist, takeaway. Okay? Whatever you're working on, it's going to be different maybe per individual. It's the feel you want to create. But this is turning me, assisting the turn towards the cable machine that way. Okay? You work on what's specific to your individual goals. If I were to turn this way, it's going to resist a takeaway for a lefty golfer. Targets that way. Resisting a takeaway that way. But I will say, takeaway specific, I rather you face the resistance or turn and somewhat face the resistance. Allow that strap to pull you forward as well. If the cause is sideways, then the effect might be too sideways, too lateral. If the cause is forward, all right, then the effect will be backwards. You're going to draw that rib cage back. So this is my kind of takeaway go-to as a lefty. Targets that way. Okay, takeaway, just draw things backwards. So the principle here, obviously I'm not going to give you every golf-specific exercise. The principle, can we assist a takeaway? Can we resist the takeaway or understand how to based on your setup? The ability to do this starts with, again, understanding the simple strap pivot on 2 legs. Centeredness, awareness of what's happening in the middle, driving this through the middle here, and then apply it to these exercises. Next phase, transition into early downswing. I think the shape we're trying to kind of work on, instinct, something that comes appears to come naturally to high-level rotational athletes and seemingly doesn't come naturally to our recreational rotators, is following the takeaway into transition is actually gaining some flexion in the lower body. Now, we're going to change levels much more during exercises in order to exaggerate the feel. So there's going to be kind of this feeling of unloading and downloading, unloading and downloading. That's the idea, right? Creating more flex on the downswing. And if I'm a righty, I'm not a righty, so I default to demonstrating lefty. Takeaway, download, takeaway, transition, and downswing where we gain some flex in the lower body. Let me get back into that setup. Okay, what's the quiz? Quiz is if I'm a lefty golfer, targets that way. What is this doing to me? It's going to assist loading into this lead leg. I'm going to kind of pivot away and then exaggerate that feel down into that lead leg before I were to rotate and extend that way. So little takeaway pivot and then an exaggerated load into that lead leg, assisting that download or surf move. Now, same setup. If I'm a righty golfer, targets that way. This is assisting me in some kind of takeaway fundamental, but now I can also pattern that reflex of the lower body, that habit to reflex versus to load and jump forward, right? Feel some length down. I'm going to combine that with finding that rib cage on the way down. Definitely trail side emphasis there, but we want awareness of this trail hip. Where is it in space? Is it popping forward or is it kind of staying back as we begin to go that way? Right? I'm creating some more flexion versus popping up out of it. In this stance, assisted that way, okay, in a way resisted this way. Play around with it. And lastly, from our foundational pivot stance and structure, we can assist or resist this extension and rotation in a way, all right? And these are just different ways. If you're a golfer and this isn't your feel, don't do it. If you're an instructor and this isn't your flavor, don't do it. Hopefully, I've covered enough agreeable information that you can draw from this video. But the more specific we get, the more questionable I think these exercises also become. And what works for some people doesn't work for other fields. We have different swing shapes, different sequences in some ways, and some of these drills might not be someone's flavor. And so that's why I'm not spending as much time on this stuff, because there's so much more agreeable and applicable information in the foundational work that can apply to different swing thoughts, different swing shapes, different structures. Okay. Getting back into our foundational stance, if I'm a lefty golfer, okay, and it's assisting me this way, okay, this might be a way to challenge a good position of the chest over the pelvis, not getting like buckled by the strap as I turn into this leg. Okay? You might have people who are like fearful of going there. It's like, no, like we have to shift there, rotate and extend while maintaining this vertical kind of stacked alignment. You ever give a client a medicine ball throw, like a light medicine ball, and they shovel it, and you're like, oh boy, okay, they don't have rotational DNA, as we'll call it. The rotational genes are dormant. Meanwhile, when you see golfers from this view, third base or caddy view, you see an alignment, head, rib cage, pelvis. You see baseball batters here, boxers, okay, vertical stacking, windmill, softball pitchers, vertical alignment. You don't see a lot of young girls throwing hard like this. Okay, what does this look like if I'm a baseball batter? I'm out in front. We have common shapes for strength and power. We seem to have common shapes for like dysfunction and weaker positions. And they're kind of similar. So with this movement, we're seeing if we can, how can we maintain that axis and even keep the lower back and pelvis in kind of maybe a healthier position. Okay, assisting extension in rotation if I'm a lefty here. Now, I almost bet this is what some of you thought I was going to start with was this pivot, and it's actually one of the last things we're going to cover. Okay, pivoting and working on getting this zipper kind of toward our target, clearing this lead side, and now if I'm a righty golfer, target's that way. Okay, we're working on not thrusting the hips, but stacking everything into this kind of common shape here as we rotate. There's no thrust, a little bit of a push down from both legs, stacking and teamwork between the trunk and the rib cage. It's smooth, it's abbreviated. I've already downloaded and shifted down into my legs, and now I'm going to extend, but I'm not doing this stuff. None of it, right? Please don't do that, okay? You're going to get more out of the strap by breaking down the pizza into its ingredients, and enhancing its ingredients individually, okay? One more set of exercises. Final two exercises are exaggerated drills to increase, I guess, what we'll call back pocket awareness. First drill starts in a very different setup than the others. I'm going to actually start in this kind of like strap front-loaded position where it's going to be across my chest. To give you this view of it, this is how I'm getting in to the strap. I'm going to start by putting my right arm in. You'll see why. Right arm in, I'm going to spin, and I am a lefty golfer. I'm going to be shifting it toward this side, which is my lead leg, but it's a leg closer to the cable machine. And I have the strap, it's kind of merging against my right glute. And now I can pull that glute back. Target's that way. And it's an exaggerated move to feel the hips begin to clear or rotate towards my target. Very much feels like somebody's pushing their hand into my back pocket, and I'm pushing back kind of into it. Here, that's one drill. Okay. Front-loaded lead leg pivot. And the last exercise, we're going to adapt our pelvic dissociation drill. We're going to add a little bit of a specific swing thought. If I'm a lefty golfer, the target is that way. Okay? I'm going to kind of produce a takeaway here, feeling like I'm turning everything together. Probably getting more rotation out of the upper body than lower body, but I'm going to turn. Now, I'm going to load, I'm going to transition, and I'm going to try to keep that hip there a little bit longer as I open up, okay? Delaying that extension. Kind of like the path I feel is that way with the zipper. So here, there, and it doesn't shoot forward too early. Gets back, kind of stays back, it's exaggerated. As I open up towards my target, it's just delaying that lead hip before everything opens up much later in the sequence, trying to delay that extension, delay that rotation in a way. Keep it back, sit a little bit, feel the abs work to stay loaded into this hip a little bit longer before I open up. Draw it back, okay, sit, keep it back. As I'm rotating, I am opening up. The pelvis is rotating. We're just delaying that extension, that shift forward. And that wraps up everything I have to offer at this time for golf-specific feel exercises. That wraps up the entire golf manual. I want to thank you for following along if you've completed this video, because I know it is long. The reality of the internet is that you go to Instagram and you see 30-second videos and you want more, and then you go to YouTube and you see a 30-minute video and you want less. There's no way for me to create a sweet spot. The most responsible thing for me to do is get everything out here. It's obviously very much not edited, not polished. You see me talking in real time and going through this in kind of long-form explanations as I'm demonstrating it, and hopefully the demonstrations are landing on camera. It's hard enough to coach these exercises in real life when I have my hands on people. I understand the difficulty in somebody maybe trying this out on their own as you take me to the gym. All right, this is going to be posted on YouTube. I will admit, give you the heads up, that it's much easier to communicate with me if you leave comments on Instagram or shoot me a DM on Instagram. Thank you for your support. Good luck with your golf journey.